Hi everyone, and welcome back to Big OGGIE's World. Today I am going to do something that I've not done before. It's one of those things that I think I will probably like, but I'm not 100%, so it'll be an experiment. So one of the things that John and I are always saying is that we should eat more fish, but I am a bit fussy when it comes to fish, and I think part of it is because I'm a bit scared of fish, and also I don't like heads. But I do like, you know, your bog standard haddock. Haddock's my favourite, and cod and that type of thing. So today I'm going to do a recipe out of Rick Stein's new book, The Simple Suppers book, and it's a Cullen Skink, which is predominantly a smoked haddock soup. Now, John likes fishy soups. Like I said, I'm not quite so sure, but I do like haddock. And I do like all the other ingredients in it, and so I should, in theory, like it. So we're going with it. Now, this recipe, compared with some of the others that I've seen, is quite pared back, but it's Rick Stein, and I trust Rick Stein, because if anybody knows about fish, it's Rick Stein, okay? So I'm going with this recipe. It is a traditional recipe that is usually done in Scotland. And basically all of the ingredients that are in this soup are all grown in gardens on the Cullen of Moray Firth. There you go, who knew? So quite simple, let's get going. So the first thing I've done is I've melted some butter in my pan, and into that I'm going to add one finely chopped onion. Now what I will say about the onion is do not get an absolutely massive huge one. Just get like a normal medium sort of sized onion and chop it finely. The reason for that is that you really don't want this to be like an onion soup. You want it there for the taste, but you don't want it to be the overpowering taste. So butter into your pan, melt your butter. And now we're going to soften these onions, but we're not going to brown them. So this can take sort of 7-8 minutes if you do it slowly. Don't rush it, because if you rush it, it will brown and you don't want it brown. This soup is predominantly white. So we're using non-dyed smoked haddock. If you haven't got non-dyed, you've only got the yellow stuff, absolutely fine. You just might find that your soup is a bit yellowy orange. But, you know, you have to use what you've got. It's as simple as that. The other thing I will say is that we got these are haddock loins from the supermarket, and it was not cheap. But this soup allegedly was served 4 generously, and so if you think about it feeding 4, I guess it wasn't so bad. It was each pack had 2 pieces in, and they were £5 a pack, so there's £10 worth of haddock going into this. A cheaper way of doing it potentially would be to buy frozen smoked haddock, which you can do nowadays, and frozen fish is a lot cheaper than fresh fish, and so that would be a cost-effective way of making it cheaper. There are very few ingredients in this soup, and John will list the quantities and everything else down below, as he always does. So I'm going to soften my onions and I will be back. Okay, so my onions are now translucent and soft, but there is no colour on them. And also my butter is still golden. You don't want to burn your butter at this point either, so be a bit careful. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add 1.2 litres of whole milk, and it has to be whole milk because obviously this is the basis of your soup. We're not adding cream or anything to it, so don't skimp on the full fat milk. Add it to your onions. And we're going to bring that milk to a boil. Now I would give it a stir because I don't want my onions to catch on the bottom, because obviously I'm turning the heat up. So I'm just going to keep stirring mine until it gets to where I need it to be. Whilst that's coming to the boil, I'm going to drain my potatoes. So here I have got 750 grams of Maris Piper or King Edward's potatoes. You need a good floury potato because the potatoes are going to partially thicken your soup. What we're going to do is, once the potatoes are cooked, we're going to crush some of them against the side of the pan with a fork to thicken our soup, but we're also going to leave some as cubes or however they cook down, so that we have got a little bit of texture and body to our soup. Right, this is almost at the boil. Okay, my milk is boiling, so I'm going to reduce the heat and I'm going to add my potatoes in. Be careful. So now we need to cook our potatoes for 20 minutes because we want them to be very soft. So keep an eye, give them an occasional stir, but they're going to take 20 minutes. So I will be back in about 20 minutes. Okay, so my potatoes have been cooking now for a good 20 minutes and they're nice and soft. So the next thing to do is to add your fish. Now keep the skin on because you're going to remove it after, but in they go, and we're going to poach these fillets in our milky potatoey yumminess until they're nicely cooked. They're handled, like you can handle them without them breaking up, and then you can flake the fish nicely. So obviously it's going to depend on the size of your fish, the thickness of your fillets, but keep an eye on it from this point because you don't want to overcook it, because obviously the fish is going to be sat in the soup after as well. So I'll be back in a few minutes when mine are ready. Okay, so my fish has had about 4 to 5 minutes now and it's ready to come back out. So get yourself a plate or a dish, take your fish back out gently because you don't want it to break up at this point. Now, we want our fish to cool down so that it's handleable, so that we can take the skin off and flake it. Once that is cooling down though, the rest of your soup is basically cooked. So what we're going to do now is either take a fork or a wooden spoon and we're going to crush some of the potatoes against the side of the pan, and that, that is going to be to thicken our soup. So when you crush, make sure you wiggle it around a bit so that you know how thick your soup is going to be. I would suggest that it's probably not too thick. You want it to be a brothy type soup as opposed to a thick sort of pureed type soup. Plus the fact it'd be nice to get some bits of potato as you're eating it, and obviously you've got your onions in there as well. It smells absolutely delicious. So I've turned my pan off because it's basically cooked now. We're just literally waiting for the fish. Once we flake the fish, we can put it back in. We're going to need to season it because we haven't put any seasoning in thus far. And we're also going to add some parsley, but we're not going to do that until we're ready to eat it. This soup is brilliant. It can be made in advance, which is what I'm doing. So I won't be adding the parsley until later when I'm ready to serve it. I will do the fish and I will put the fish back in so that the fish is sat in the liquor, because that will only add to the flavour of the soup. You can reheat this without a problem. You could probably, because we've only used full fat milk and not cream, you could probably freeze this quite successfully. If you do add cream to a soup though, and you do try and freeze it, you will find that it will split most of the time. Not all of the time, but most of the time, if you add cream and freeze it, it will split. If you do freeze this, please make sure when you either bag it or whatever you put it in to freeze it, that the fish is under liquid before you freeze it. Otherwise your fish will be tough and not very nice when you defrost it to eat it again. So I'm going to leave it here for a few minutes until my fish is cool enough, and then I will come back and flake fish with you and we will be done. Okay, so my fish has now cooled enough and I have flaked it and skinned it. The skin comes off really easy once it's cooked. You shouldn't have a problem with that. So I've left it in quite big chunky pieces because that's the way we like it, and all of that fish is going back in. I'm going to mix it around to distribute, like so. And we're just going to test it for seasoning. Remember, we've put no seasoning in this at all at the minute. Yep. Need salt. Also remember that we have cooked potatoes in this water, so if there was any saltiness in the fish to start off with, or even the little bit of salt that was in the butter to start off with, is not going to be enough to season your soup. Some pepper in it. Much better. So this soup technically could be served right now if you wanted it. So it probably takes, I guess, from start to finish, if you were going to do it to eat right there and then, it would take you probably 30 to 35 minutes, somewhere around there. Maybe 5 or 10 minutes longer, depending on how hot you can handle fish. I'm going to leave this now until this evening, when we will reheat it and we will add the parsley literally just before we serve it. If you put your parsley in too soon, it's going to wilt and it's going to go horrible. So leave the parsley until the last minute or two and you will be good to go. So I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. It's something different. We do love a homemade soup in this house. And in fact, we were talking to say that we used to like tin soups a little while back, but once you start making your own soup, I don't think tin soups come anywhere close after. So we will be serving this evening with some nice crusty bread, and it's, like I said, a lovely hearty soup for the family. There's nothing random in it, so the kids should like it if you have fussy kids like we do. And there we go. So if you did like it, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do. It really does help us out. If you know anybody else that might be interested, show them our way as well, please. At the bottom of our recipes, you will find a link that will take you to our Amazon shop if there's anything that you see that we use that you think you might like. We just literally make a couple of pennies from it, but every little penny helps. So that's that. So enjoy your soup. I hope it warms you up in these horrible, cold, nasty days, and we will see you all again really soon. Bye for now.